If you've enjoyed the content we've made so far in 2024, we're asking you to pick up a Kinda Funny membership on patreon.com/kindafunny or youtube.com/kindafunnygames to say thanks as part of August's Kinda Funny membership drive. That 10 spot would get you access to more than 130 exclusive episodes of content. And to give you a taste, we're posting one of the exclusive Gregways just like this each and every Saturday and Sunday in August. On top of that, make sure you join us for weekly public happy hours where we take Patreon member calls live for everyone as previews of what a Kinda Funny membership gets you each and every month.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gregway in the car with me, Greg, on the way to work for June 4th. It's a Tuesday. I have a humongous zit on my lip. I fucking hate it. It drives me crazy. Because in high school and college, I had cystic acne, which is basically not like a normal little zit. It's like 3 pores at once that come up in a big red bubble and then fill in with little white bubbles, and it looks like fucking the back of a gremlin in Gremlins when they're wet and they're gonna make more gremlins, not Mogwais, but gremlins. I digress. It's gross. It started yesterday. I popped it this morning. I hate it because I don't want this big thing with like white heads all gross on, so I did this. This is a lot for you to take in the first 5 seconds of a Gregway. I apologize. But I wanted to address it that I hate that I have this giant red thing on my lip, but I digress. Driving to work. It's a Tuesday. Gonna have a good day. Gonna get a bunch of stuff done. Maybe gonna get the car serviced because the car keeps yelling at me it needs service. There's a place not too far from the office. I'm gonna pop in there when I end this Gregway. Sorry. Today's question comes from the one, the only Dante. He's not even supposed to be here today. That's a Clerks reference. And it's kind of timely because Dante's writing in saying, what's the biggest career obstacle I, Greg Miller, have ever faced? And then he goes on to say, through his post, that he just got laid off. He's looking for some good vibes, some, good stories as he continues the job hunt. Good vibes. And Dante, that's a great question. And honestly, I have been stupidly lucky in terms of my job and my career and everything else. And yeah, whatever, skill and yada yada yada, blah blah, that's luck, whatever, whatever. But like mainly what I mean is the fact that like I, of course, in the 4th grade, got that issue of Game Pro, knew I wanted to write about video games, which of course evolves into all of this. But I was flabbergasted to discover that not every person learned what they wanted to do in the 4th grade. And a lot of other people have had a lot of other struggles and changes and, all these other different things to get where they're going, let alone the fact, I started using LinkedIn recently just because I was like, I got sick of people emailing me and me wanting to know who they were, and then like Facebook doesn't help. It's like, oh, well, LinkedIn is actually exactly what I need for trying to vet people who are trying to talk to us or do business with us. So I started a thing there so I could look at people, and people are looking at me, and everybody's looking at each other. Anyways, though, I went through and started adding more connections today while I was making breakfast, and I was shocked to see so many former IGN, GameSpy, Team Xbox, all the people that we used to work with at IGN, and how they're, oh my god, I haven't thought about you in years. Where are you now? Oh my god, you're there. I didn't know you were there. That kind of thing of like where people have pivoted and changed and all these different things. Not that that's exactly the same, because being in the games industry is being in the games industry. But anyways, I digress. What I'm saying is like, my life's been pretty fucking simple, right? All the school, go to Mizzou. Get my degree, go to the Columbia Daily Tribune. 1.5 years, go to IGN. 8 years, go to Kinda Funny, and here we are a decade later, right? It's not the most interesting resume in terms of the moves and things I've done. And so for you to ask about career hurdles and kind of like pep talk speeches, right? What I would go to then is probably way back, right? And talk about like keeping the faith. When you want to do something from the 4th grade on, and you tell people that's pressure to a degree, right? And I'll never forget when I went to Mizzou, and I graduated from Mizzou, and I got my degree, and not only was it, very simple, like I've said so far, my journey, getting a job after college was also kind of simple. Stick with me. When I was on a tour my senior year of college, we went to the Columbia Daily Tribune, which is the local paper in Columbia, or was. Now it's like a shell of itself, but that's a conversation for another time. Went to the Columbia Daily Tribune, and basically the editor-in-chief was giving us the tour and showing us how it all works and where it all goes, yada, yada, yada. And at the end of the thing, like, we're in class, at the end of the thing, I think we were inside of the actual place where they printed the papers back then. He's like, any questions? And like, nobody had any questions that I did. I'm like, are you hiring? And he laughed at me. He's like, are you asking for a job? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, all right, well, here's my contact information. You know, hit me up when you're closer to graduation. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, months went by, and I hit him up, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm graduating. It was, I think I hit him up in the spring of my senior year. Like, it's like confusing a little bit. I took my capstone class as a summer thing. So I walked in the spring of my senior year of college, and then still did a summer class to finish it all off and yada yada yada. So I did I emailed him and went in for an interview, and basically was like, cool, it was like May, we'll say, right? He's like, cool, when you graduate, when you're done with your capstone in August, you start here, you got a job. And I was like, awesome. It might have been earlier than that, because what it meant to me was, in my stupid head, not stupid, I guess accurate head and smart head and beautiful head, zit covered face, what it meant to me was, cool, I have a job, I have a safety net, now we can officially shoot for the moon and not worry about it. And that was applying to EGM, applying to IGN, applying to WhatUp, applying to GameSpot, applying to Inquest Gamer, doing all of these different things, right? And as the story goes, you know that no one would touch me with a 10-foot pole for those gaming positions right out of college. And the closest I got was an interview with Inquest Gamer. They were basically a side magazine of Wizard Magazine, the comic book magazine, and Toy Fair, the toy magazine. Inquest was Inquest Gaming, and it was really comic book shop stuff, right? So it was tabletop, it was Magic the Gathering, but they were spinning up a video game division officially. And so I applied there, I guess impressed enough to get the interview, and I was one of, like, I forget how many candidates for the job. Like, it wasn't many. Like, I was close. I was really, really close. And it was, I did the interview, and I've had 2 times in my life where I can't stop talking, and the voice in my head's like, stop talking, stop talking, stop talking, and I just couldn't do it. This was the first. And I got on for this job interview, and again, like, this is all I've ever wanted to do, yada, yada, yada. So I got in this job interview, and they were basically like, how are you, Greg? And I was like, gone. I just started blah, 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 the game is blah, 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 you know, never let them get another word in edgewise, you know what I mean? I was playing KOTOR 2 at the time, and I didn't point out that it wasn't the same team that did KOTOR 1. I felt like an idiot about that. But it was mainly just me fucking talking. That was the problem. I would not shut up as I talked, right? And so, like, you know, I didn't immediately get told you didn't get the job. Instead, as with most jobs, right, it was just all quiet on the Western Front. At which point I had to do the super annoying thing of, like, email them, like, the super desperate thing of, like, hey, like, this was out in New York. This was out, not like New York City, like New York State. Hey, like, I'm starting this other job in like 2 weeks or whatever, but I still want to work for you more. So if this is an actual thing, I need to know. And they're like, no, it is not actually. I'm like, all right, cool, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so I was talking about going to the Tribune that first day, getting out of my car, and driving and parking and feeling so depressed, like I had failed, right? I went to college to work for video games and didn't do that, right? I ended up working at the daily newspaper. And I remember feeling like I failed, kind of being depressed when I pulled up. I shut the door, and by the time I was seated at my desk, I was on cloud 9 of, like, well, I'm a reporter, and I'm doing this, and this is amazing, yada, yada, yada. But, like, there was that moment of it, and more importantly, there was, I think that fall, I went to a tailgate with my college friends, basically my Mizzou family, right, and their family, who was, like, again, a second family to me, and I was talking to one of the dads. He's like, Miller, so what's going on? I'm like, oh, I'm working at the Tribune now. It's this. I'm a general assignment reporter. And I'll never forget, he goes, that's great. How's that lead to talking about video games or writing about video games? And I was like, oh, that's a great question. But and I was like, that's a logical question. And it's all in my head. Logical question. And I'm sure just about everybody thinks that. Like, they don't see how these pieces connect. And of course, the way the pieces connect was, I wasn't going to fucking stop, right? Like, I knew what the goal was and where I was going and what I was going to get fucking done, right? Like, that was it. Like, I think the other was, I was obviously engaged back then, not to Jen, my ex-wife, who I have, straight out of college thing. If you've never heard these stories, that's another story for another time too. But I remember at one point driving somewhere, and she mentioned that her parents, her mom, had said something that I'm going to classify as talking shit. It wasn't like a real shit talker thing, but it was basically the same thing of just like, what a pipe dream. You know what I mean? And I remember pulling over on the side of the road, and it wasn't like a dangerous road, and stopping and be like, just so you know, and this is like 6 months. I don't even know if I had started the column yet for the paper yet, the video game column, but like, it was, I feel like it was 6 months. I was like, just so you know, like, I can't prove it, but I feel like it's about to happen. Like, I feel like I can feel that I'm close to getting what I want and where I want to be, and yada, yada, yada. And so, the inspiring story I can give you, Dante, right, is basically lame, and it's that you got to believe in yourself, right? But it is that idea that, like, you got to feel what you're feeling and know what you know. And if anybody tries to tell you otherwise, shove it down their fucking throats and tell them to get out of the way, right? Where it is that idea of, like, people from the outside couldn't see what the move of working at the Tribune, how does that lead to me getting to the IGN or video game reporting or video game reviewing, right? And a huge part of it was, of course, they didn't see that I was going home and trying to freelance my ass off. I was pitching myself to the people, even though I didn't get the job at Inquest Gamer, right? I made a contact there, so I was pitching them constantly on video game and tabletop features. I was pitching Wizard Magazine on comic book and Superman stuff. I was using all those connects I had to get freelance work. I forget what it was. There was some, God only knows what it was, content farm kind of thing, where I was getting like $25 or $50 an article. You went into this weird CMS, I pitched what it was, they would approve it, then I would write it, and then I would get paid for it. And it's not this, but it was something like contentcontent.com or contentfarm.com. It was like not a site you would go to find this stuff, but it was stuff you would write and put up there. And I have absolutely no idea where the money they were paying me would come from. Again, it was nothing, but where it was coming from or what they were doing with these articles. But I reviewed like the Bible game for them and all this other weird shit that like, just weird ass garbage that I was doing there, on top of what I was doing for the Tribune, which was not reviews, but, taking national video game news and stories and making them local in the column for the Tribune readers. And then the blog was on the internet, you might have heard of it, and I was able to do all sorts of wacky stuff there on the daily that then got super shared. I had a breakthrough with Kotaku where, I don't know why, but I was one of the people who kept covering the poor mom who died in the Hold Your Wii for a Wii radio contest, where it was this whole thing of drink as much water as you could to win a Wii, and she drank so much she died because you can overdose drinking water, whatever. But I remember Kotaku kept sharing my article. This is a different Kotaku. Kept sharing my blog posts, and so like you can imagine the shock on my editorial team's face when it was the end of the year roundup of here's the things that perform the best on the ColumbiaDailyTribune.com, and it was all this Missouri news, and then at like number 6 or 7 was this weird game over blog about Hold Your Wii for a Wii, right? Like, they didn't see the value in it, but I did, and I knew what I was doing. So again here, I'm a little at a loss, Dante, to give you specific advice, right? Because of course, I don't know, you got laid off, which totally sucks, and I'm sorry for that. I don't know what your job is, I don't know what your dreams are, I don't know anything like that. But the idea is that I assume you're a kind of funny best friend. You're a good person, Dante. So I assume you got a good head on your shoulders. So I assume you're doing the right things and to some degree know what you want to do. And I'm not saying like maybe as clear as this, but did you like the last job you did? And it was, can you get another job in that field? Can you go do this thing? Is it time to take a chance on the fucking dream and go chase those things? And have you built that? Have you worked your ass off on the back end? And like, again, I don't have all of that in front of me with you. But the answer is, in terms of my biggest hurdle was believing. You know what I mean? And I think that's so easy to get shouted down in our world, whether it's your own internal voice. Because, obviously, there's times, I'm coming home and I'm writing about the Bible game for $25, and it's like, no one's going to read this. Does it actually matter? Yada, yada, yada. But it was even though I didn't know it at the time. It was that I needed at-bats, I needed swings, I needed practice, and I hadn't given myself that, obviously, right? And that's, of course, you know, what the end of the story is for me, right? Where the story goes that, you know, I applied at IGN 13 times on my personal email that started after college. So God only knows how many times I applied on my Mizzou.edu account. But when I got my own Gmail, I applied 13 times. And on those first 12 emails, I didn't get a fucking courtesy rejection letter. But on the 13th application, I got contacted, interviewed, and hired within 24 hours. So my life changed overnight. Legitimately, all my dreams, professional dreams ever, came true overnight. And when I got there, and Chris Roper had given me the tour, and it was the end of my first day and all this stuff, he flipped his letter as he always did when he talked, and he said, "Any questions?" And the only question I had was, "What took you so long?" And he said, "What do you mean, what took me so long?" And I said, I missed my auto mechanic. I said, "I've been ready to go for a year and a half. Why now? What was it about this time that all this happened so fast?" And he just simply said, "You proved you could do it. Yeah, you know, before on all those other attempts, you didn't have daily video game writing experience. You had a column here, a thing, or not even a column, an article here, you know, a blog post here. There's 6 months between these articles that are published. Here it was that you did it every day on the blog, and you came up with weekly conversations, and you showed you could do it." And that was the difference. And so the idea here is simply to fucking believe in yourself. And if you know what you're meant to do, you know what you're meant to go be a part of, you know where it is. And if you don't know, that's okay. Like, I think that, again, that's the other part of the story. I'm the rare one in so many occasions of knowing what I wanted to do and how much I wanted to do it. But you got to believe in yourself. And that goes for everybody. You got to have that internal compass. You got to have that internal monologue. You got to figure out what exactly it is you want to do. I got to get this car fixed, and I got to host games daily. This has been a lovely Gregway. Dante, go fucking ram it down their throats!